we'd like for you to put your name and the organization that you are most closely associated with, and just enter that into the chat so we can get a sense of who's on this training with us today. And it's great to have some new friends and some old friends as part of this. So if you put your name and also your organization, we'd be happy to know that. And it's good to see that populating there in the chat. Thank you, everybody. Lots of great master naturalists and volunteers in various places. So while we're doing that, I'm going to just quickly go through what's going to happen today. We're going to provide you with an overview of this tool called iNaturalist, which is pretty fantastic. If you haven't had a chance to play with it, we're going to show you some really neat things about that. We'll introduce you to the City Nature Challenge and what does that look like coming up at the end of April into May. Then we're going to spend the majority of our time today actually showing you about how to make and identify observations in iNaturalist. So Laurel and Fiona, one has an iPhone and one has an Android phone, and so they're going to share their screens and show you how to do that, but we'll also take you on a tour of the website and how to do it through the website. We three have lots of tips and tricks for how to make iNaturalist work, and so we'll be sharing that throughout our presentation, and we'll leave plenty of time at the end for questions. So before we get started, are there any things, Laurel and Fiona, that we should say here at the top?
I think that's good.
All right, so I'm going to do one more thing, and we're going to do a quick poll. Unfortunately, the Zoom environment doesn't allow for a lot of participant engagement, but I do have a poll set up for us. So I'm going to launch this poll, and I'd like for you to tell us what's your favorite place to be in nature. And I'm going to give you about, I don't know, 20 seconds or so to think about, where do you like to be in nature? All right, got a few more choices of places. And I'm going to end the poll here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me show you the results. And so it looks like the Bosque wins out with the most number of votes, but also then we have the mountains, people go into the foothills, people like to be over on the west side, people in their neighborhood, that's the one that I would choose, and then other. So fantastic. Thank you all for sharing about how you enjoy nature. Okay, so first up,
all of the above.
All of the above? Aha!
I saw someone put that in the chat.
So now I'm going to turn it over to Laurel, who's going to do the introduction to iNaturalist.
All right. Okay, so iNaturalist is kind of at the heart of the City Nature Challenge. It is both an app and a website. Actually, you can go to the next slide, Selena. That allows the City Nature Challenge to happen and allows scientists and naturalists to gather data about observations of nature from all around the world. It is so it's both a platform, or it has two platforms. It has an app and a website, and we'll be going through how to use both and what which is best for different situations. And so it lets you share your observations of nature and create that official record of where the wildlife was observed, the plants and wildlife. And so it records where you are and what time you have made the observation. And we'll look at ways to get around that if you don't like sharing that on your phone, but it's a great way to contribute to citizen science. And so let's go to the next slide. And once you go to the app, we have some pictures here of what happens when you go into the app, and you can see all the details that you are submitting to the database, and showing you the picture and the location. And And you can look at all of your observations on the app, and also do a bit of exploration. We're not going to focus much on the exploration on the app today, because it's going to be very focused on getting those observations made and into the database. And so let's go to the next slide. And the way to use the app or the website, we'll do the website later, but it works for both. Take as clear and focused a picture as possible. Sometimes it's not possible to get a clear picture with mammals and birds, but it's very good to try, because it's kind of amazing what can be identifiable. Even some horrible pictures can be identifiable. But in the basically, you want to get as good a picture as you can to have the best chance of it being identifiable. And if you are attached to the internet, either at home or out, when you're uploading your observation, it will gives you some suggestions of what it might be. Sometimes they're spot on, and sometimes they're wild and funny, but it's a great tool. The artificial intelligence analyzing the pictures and with looking through the database of species and giving you a suggestion. And so that's not where it ends, though. When you submit your observation, it will go into that database, which is accessible by everyone. And there are experts who will help you identify it. It's great to say, this is a bird, especially if the picture's bad, or this is a plant, but you don't have to know anything. You don't have to be able to identify anything to be able to take part. And just take a picture and upload it, let iNaturalist know when and where you took it, and then you are good to go. And you'll get that support from the iNaturalist community. And next slide, Selena. And so after you have uploaded your picture either on the app or the website, you can go to the website and see more information about that. And we'll go into this a little bit more detail later in the training. But you can see that you've got the picture that you took and the location, and it'll show you some other other observations have been. But you'll see if you said, I don't know what this is, somebody else will hop on and suggest an ID, or if you've made an identification and someone disagrees, they will say, oh, actually it's this, and for this reason. And so everyone can do this, and that's why it's so wonderful, because lots of people think in order to be a naturalist, you have to have a lot of knowledge, but you can use iNaturalist to gain that knowledge. And so there are over 800,000 iNaturalist members around the world taking part. And many of them are scientists and naturalists, experts in different taxa, different types of wildlife. And everyone is there to help everyone learn about nature. So it's a very wonderful community. And if you get a lot of agreement about what your picture is of, it can be research grade, and that is great for those scientists who are looking for definite observations. Other projects like ours, we're going to be looking at other all ranges of identification. And then if we go to the next slide, we have this is an example. This is showing all the observations that have been made around the world. And so it's great for if you want to look for a certain species, you can go on iNaturalist and zoom in to whatever area you want to look and see what species have been seen there. And if we go to the next slide.
I'm actually not going to go to the next slide because I want to do a poll next. Is that all right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, I went to I was supposed to wrap up on that one. I'm sorry.
Okay,
so
I'm gonna.
my
All right,
screen is.
So
Okay,
Laura, are
yeah,
you
go ahead.
finished, or do you have?
I'll be finished and talk later. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
Let me launch another poll. So Laurel's told us all about the observations that can go into iNaturalist, but I want to find out what kinds of things are you into? What kinds of living things do you like to observe? So let me give you the next poll. What's your favorite kinds of living things? And I drew these categories from iNaturalist. So I've launched that poll. Plants, birds, mammals, insects, arachnids, fish, reptiles, amphibians, fungi, or other. There's actually also, I think kelp and protists are have categories in iNaturalist, but I thought I'd go with the more common ones. Oh, I can see in real time how this is going, and I'll show you all pretty soon here. Let's do another 5 seconds to see what people like to see when they're out in nature. We'll close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's see here. Looks like birds win out, then plants. I think mammals, insects, and arachnids. Looks like we got a couple. We got an other as well. Put in the chat what the other is. And Fiona, I agree. We need more herpers in this crowd. So, all right. Well, good to hear from you all. And I have to say that plants are the easiest thing to make observations, and so I think that is the greatest number of observation in iNaturalist. But birds are certainly also excellent. Oh, somebody picked all of the above. Indeed, I agree. Okay, Fiona, I'll get you queued up here for the next slide. Hopefully that's that didn't do right. Hang on. Let me do it this way. Okay. Over to you, Fiona.
All right. So I like putting the comment of all of the above in the chat because that's kind of the goal of City Nature Challenge is to find any and everything that's alive in any of those categories. So to introduce you to City Nature Challenge, if you haven't heard of it before or aren't familiar with it, City Nature Challenge is basically a BioBlitz, if you've heard of BioBlitzes, where nowadays it's a 4-day period to find as many living things in an area, especially in and around cities, hence the name, as you can. So where people just contribute to this effort on iNaturalist, so using the platform that Laurel just introduced us to record and share and identify all of those observations. So where it actually began, just a little history of City Nature Challenge, is it was started by 2 women, Lila Higgins with the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles County in California, and Allison Young at the California Academy of Sciences. So and I think that's in San Francisco, because I know that the original competition was between San Francisco and LA in 2016. So it was literally just those 2 California cities competing against each other. They thought it would be a good way to record all of the wildlife that you could find in these urban areas, some of the biggest in the country, and to have this friendly competition to try to get people excited and motivated to go out and find things. And then the next year in 2017, it started to expand nationally. So within the US, some more cities joined on. And then the following year, it just took 2 years for it to expand internationally and for cities around the world to start to be a part of it. And the basic idea you can see summed up in this graphic at the bottom is to find wildlife, so plants, animals, any kind of evidence of wildlife, anything you can find, take pictures of it and share it on iNaturalist. So a really basic concept. And what's really interesting to see here on this graph is that, so iNaturalist is used all the time. As Laurel's gone over, you can use iNaturalist any day of the year for anything you find. It's not because of City Nature Challenge, rather it's the reverse, that City Nature Challenge uses iNaturalist as its platform. In most cities, I think there's some cities that might not use it. But what's really interesting to see is that, you have the activity on iNaturalist, the number of sightings, and every year during City Nature Challenge, you see a jump up, and that jump is getting bigger and bigger and bigger above their usual traffic on the site after each year as more and more cities join. So this is a big worldwide event at this point. And that brings me to the next slide. So I just want to show you guys by the numbers if you think that's cool. I think it's pretty awesome to see how much is expanded. So in 2016, like I said, there were 2 cities. There were around 1,000 people or so participating that submitted over 20,000 observations. So they were busy, those 1,000 people. And then 2017, it expanded to 16 cities. It was 4 times the number of people and many more observations, 125,000 or more. And you can see each year it's gone up and up and up. So 2018 was 68 cities, 2019 was 159 cities. So it just about doubled, or no, more than doubled. And then 2020, it went up to 244 cities. So almost 100 more cities in just that next year. So each year it's expanding bigger and bigger, more people are finding out about it. And people, really anyone can take on that challenge, that challenge itself of starting a new City Nature Challenge. So right now, City Nature Challenge ABQ is the only City Nature Challenge in New Mexico, but anyone could start another one for next year. And we did expand it this year. So we went from it being just Bernalillo County. So we never had it as just Albuquerque, but it was always, I think, from the beginning, Bernalillo County. And then this year we've expanded it to Bernalillo, Sandoval, and Valencia counties so that we can get more of what we're calling the middle Rio Grande section in central New Mexico to bring in even more people that can help participate. Next slide. And so this is some of our local numbers. So we did it for the first time in 2019. And that year in City Nature Challenge Albuquerque, there were 8,230 observations made by 334 people, and that identified 1,211 species. And that's always interesting to look at because obviously you can see here, some species were found many times to get that 8,000 number, but it's really more relevant a lot of times to scientists or people looking at the data to see how many actual species were found. And we did a really good job that first year. We actually placed top 5 in 7 categories. So the Global City Nature Challenge and the 2 women that run it ranked all of the cities around the world that participated and looked at how many observations were made, how many species were made based on populations of different areas, based on climate, based on the land area, all different ways of kind of breaking it down. So they were able to do all these different rankings to let people know how they did, or let cities know how they did. And the pictures on this page and throughout most of the rest of the slideshow are photos taken by City Nature Challenge participants from our area. So some of you might see your own photos there. I gave credit to all of them. And it's just really cool to see. Some people are really good photographers too. So you get some really great art photography. You get this really funny one of a summer tanager on a sign of a summer tanager. I think, did you take that one, Laurel? Or is that just your favorite one? That one's pretty good.
I took that one and I actually made the sign also with another picture of my summer tanager. So yes.
Nice, all the layers of it. That's great. And then in 2020, so last year, our second year doing it, we had a little less observations, a few thousand less, 5,000. 330 observers, so almost the same number of observers, and a little bit less species. But that's probably to be expected because it was, of course, soon after the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. So people wouldn't have been able to go out and about as much and would have been more cautious about that. And City Nature Challenge was really trying to make sure that everyone was very safe with the way that they did the challenge too. But we still were really happy with those results. All right, next slide, I believe. So I kind of just gave some ideas, why should we do City Nature Challenge? Why did they start it? And why use iNaturalist? Why are these good tools to use? So one thing it really does is encourages people to notice wildlife around them and not thinking, oh, they have to go out to a park, way away from their house or go out to the wilderness to find wildlife. Especially with City Nature Challenge, the focus is on finding it right in your backyard. So looking under a rock and finding a spider, or looking for tracks that something walked through and tracked in the mud in your local park. So really looking closely for all those small things and the signs and anything you can find. So that hopefully leads to a lot of budding new naturalists and people that might not have considered themselves naturalists or might not be involved in wildlife research or anything like that, but still want to do something like this and contribute as just a private person who doesn't have any career in this work to be able to share what they find. And it also, of course, City Nature Challenge focuses on urban biodiversity, like I said. So it's really seeing how many species and what species are living in our cities and living in the most urban areas in our globe, on our globe. And it connects cities and people around the world. So you can feel like you're really part of this global effort. It's really cool that you can compare your results to a city in, I don't know, Bolivia or some other in places that you may know little about. You can browse their sightings, you can connect with them, see their social media. So it's a really cool way to feel like we're all part of something much bigger and in so many places. Scientifically, it also documents, and iNaturalist does this in general all the time. It documents snapshots of species in different areas. So for City Nature Challenge, you're looking at those specific 4 days, what is here right now during this spring season. And with iNaturalist in general, every sighting you're including the location, the date, and the time. So that can be looked at and seen, okay, this is here at this time. And all of that information that's put in provides data for scientists to then look at, as Laurel was mentioning, especially if it gets research grade identification, then scientists can go in, look at the range maps to see how far a species might range and all kinds of things like that, how frequent it is, when it's migrating, and learn different things about our species from people's submissions. And along with that, you could also find rare and endangered species, and that happens every year with City Nature Challenge, that people put in things that really aren't found very often or are endangered, and that's really exciting and also informative. And it brings, like I mentioned, it brings everyone together for a common goal, even during a pandemic. So it's a way of us to work collectively together, even if we can't gather in groups. And like the first year of City Nature Challenge, Selena and Laurel and other partners organized, walks in person and sessions where people got to go out and ID together. So even if we can't do that, we can still be working on this together, which I think is a pretty cool thing. And I think that's my last slide on City Nature Challenge, but you can go to the next one. Yeah. So now I wanted to go into tips and tricks and the process that you guys will use to actually find wildlife, take photos, and then upload your sightings to iNaturalist. So we're going to go through that whole process in kind of chronological order so you can understand how it all works. So there's just some basic tricks for finding wildlife. A lot of you may have looked already for many things, and based on the polls, you're already looking for plants and birds and things. but maybe you could expand those categories. And I'm biased because I used to do reptile and amphibian research. So maybe start looking for some lizards this year, like that cool photo of a whiptail that one of our participants in City Nature Challenge last year submitted. You can look for ants or anthills or just very small signs of insects. So look low, look for tiny things like that. I always encourage looking under rocks or boards or logs. You can find lots of insects or egg casings or fungus or things like that that you might not, notice if you're just walking along. So really slow down. I know I have a lot of trouble finding birds. Laurel's an expert at it, so she could give me a lot of tips on it. But just really take your time. And if it is a bird, maybe you'll hear it first, and you can really just slow down and try to find, where is it at, or you'll notice a little bit of movement. So I just encourage to really, look under things, behind things. Try to notice the smaller things or the things that are more hidden. So, the more that we can contribute those sightings, the more we're getting a better full picture of really what we have around us. Basically document any living things. So the only things we don't want you to put on iNaturalist or City Nature Challenge are pets or people, but pretty much anything else. So, if it's things growing in your neighborhood, obviously a lot of those will have been planted at some point by humans, but now they're a part of our city's nature. So you can do things like that. You can do weeds are really good because they obviously grow in on their own. And then, of course, mammals and reptiles and amphibians, not that we have many of those, unfortunately, and any taxa, basically, you can submit any type of living wild thing. One tip I thought of is just kind of don't repeat the same thing over and over. So if you see, obviously, if you're in the bosque, like a lot of you like to go to, don't repeat cottonwood trees a bunch of times. Don't put in like 20 sightings of cottonwood trees. But definitely put one, even though it's very common and obvious, it's a good thing to note. But try to see how many different types of trees you can find. Is there New Mexico olive? Are there invasives like salt cedar or Russian olive in the area? You can add those too. That's an informative thing. You can, just try to look at the very small ground plants. And even if you have no idea what they are, I do this every year. I'm known for this, where I'll just take photos of every single type of ground plant I see, having no idea what it is, and I'll upload those. And evidence. So a lot of times people forget, you don't have to see that beaver in the bosque, but you can see the chews on, some trees that have been chewed down, and you can take a photo of that and submit that. You don't have to see a raccoon, but if you see its print in the mud or the sand by the water, include that. Scat or holes or feathers or bones or egg casings, like I said. Selena just put in the chat, yeah, you can do a recording. So if it's a bird call or even frogs or, making their calls, you can do an audio recording and submit that. And try to visit different spots. So we encourage you, since there are 4 days of the challenge, maybe one day go out to, one part of your neighborhood, one day go the other direction, go to the bosque one day, go to the mountains one day, as far as you want to go or as close as you want to go, but try to vary your habitat or location that you're looking at a little bit. And that also goes for just iNaturalist in general. It makes things more interesting if you search different areas, different times of the year. All right, so now that you kind of have an idea, you've found some things, now we can go to the next slide. I just have a few tricks on photographing or recording their evidence. So a lot of you have probably taken out your smartphones, or maybe some of you have some good cameras you take out with you and take wildlife photos of. But some basic tips to use when you're taking those photos are to really try to have the focus be on the subject. This one in the bottom corner, some kind of insect, it has the Latin name there. It didn't have a common name on iNaturalist, but that one is, that person put like 8 photos of that insect. So that can be helpful. So you could see some of them were pretty blurry, so they might not be as good for identification. And then there were ones like this one that were clearer. And so that really helps. But try to get as clear of an image as you can. However, you'll see, you know, this is a beautiful mountain chickadee picture, or I think Laurel took this photo of a photo of the camera taking the photo. So, you know, you can get really nice shots like that sometimes if you have a good camera. But if you're using a smartphone, which is what I usually do, you might not be able to get an amazing close-up, you know, crisp, clear shot, and that's okay. Especially as Laurel mentioned with birds and things like that, sometimes even a blurry photo is still able to be identified. So do the best you can, but you can use kind of a trick if you're not familiar with it on a smartphone screen. If you just kind of tap the screen where the subject is that you're trying to take the photo of, usually you can get your camera on your phone to focus on it. And then on a regular, like an SLR or a point and shoot camera, if you half press your shutter button, you can also get it to focus until you get it to really clear on the object you're trying to photograph. Try to have good lighting. Obviously, you can't control that, but try to, you know, move so your own shadow's not in the way. Try not to have the sun right behind the subject or washing out the thing you're taking a photo of. So try to pay attention to those things so that the coloring is more accurate and it's easier for people to really see that sighting. Try to get as close as you can, but obviously if it's a bird or a lizard or a mammal, they're not going to want you to get close. So do what you can. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a photo from far away and then I'll get a little closer and take another, and I'll just see how close I can get until until the bird flies off or something. And you can zoom in, but I wouldn't zoom in all the way, especially on your phone or something. It gets really pixelated. So it can be better to just take the photo from farther away and then crop it later to get a little bit closer. And if you're taking photos of like tracks, like this raccoon track taken by Michael, who I see is on the call today. Thanks for that, Michael. So you did a really good job of putting a ruler right by the tracks so that anyone looking at it and trying to ID it can see how big it is. That can also be helpful with things like sometimes plants, you know, if you want to show how big a leaf is or something, you can hold up your hand, you could hold up a pencil, some kind of object where people tend to know what size, approximately what size it is, and that will help people get an idea of the scale. Because obviously if it's a zoomed in photo or a close-up photo, it's hard to know how big something is. So that can be really helpful sometimes with ID. And you can also, as Selena had mentioned in the chat, you can record audio of songs and calls. And I've definitely done that with birds that I just couldn't spot in a bush or a tree. I'll do that audio and upload that. You cannot, however, you can't upload video on iNaturalist. So you'll have to either do it as audio or you can like extract the audio from the video if you want to do it that way. Anything, Laurel or Selena, that you want to add about taking photos or finding sightings?
I think that was good. Although you can do audio for frogs and such as well.
Exactly. Yep. And I love doing that. All right, so we're going to get off of the slideshow now, and we're going to start actually showing you how this works, how you can actually go in on your own phone and your own device and upload sightings. So I'm going to show how to do it on an Android. I have a Google Pixel phone, so I downloaded the iNaturalist app on my phone already. And I'll go through the whole process of adding a photo that I've taken. And then after I do this, Laurel is going to show you on an iPhone. So you'll see if it looks a little bit different or if the process is slightly different. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, and like I said, I already downloaded the iNaturalist app, so that is the best way on a mobile device to use iNaturalist is to download the app. I think you can also use it, you know, through Chrome or through the web version. it'll just work better if you're actually on the app. Oh, that's not the app. Oh yeah, it is. Okay, so let me go back here. So here's the app. I'm logged into the Sandy Mountain Natural History Center account, and when you log in, it'll show you all the observations you've made before. So this is just everything I've entered in here in the past. To add a new observation, you'll want to use that green plus button at the bottom right corner. So that's kind of the most important button to know in the app. And then you can choose either to, record sound right then and there, like we were talking about, or choose a sound on your phone, which I'm not going to do right now. Or you can take a photo. So this is really good if you're out and about, and especially if you're trying to do a bunch of sightings at once for City Nature Challenge, just take the photos and upload them as you go. Especially if you have reception. If you don't have reception, you'll have to do it later, I think. Or there might be an offline mode, I'm not sure. So I could take a photo right now, but since I'm inside, I'm going to choose an image. So you can choose any picture you've already taken. So you can always go back and upload, you can always go back and upload things later. So here's an image right here I took, I think, a few weeks ago on a juniper tree. And once I selected the photo, it'll enter at the top there. You can always add another photo, but I only have one photo of that. And the next thing you can do is where it says, what did you see? Just click on that or tap that with your finger, and it'll automatically, this is that really cool feature Laurel was talking about, it'll automatically suggest to you what it thinks it is. So it's already saying it thinks it's in the genus of leafy mistletoes, and I happened to see that it was on a juniper tree and that it looked like juniper mistletoe. So that's actually kind of a challenging one because mistletoe grows on the juniper tree, but it's a separate species. It's a parasite living on the tree. So it can get tricky. But if I wasn't sure which of those mistletoes it was, I could just click that checkbox next to leafy mistletoe, and it'll identify it to the genus, and then someone else on the site can then go in later and let me know which one it was. Or I can go into, if you see those two arrows next to juniper mistletoe and next to western dwarf mistletoe, there's two arrows pointing opposite ways. That is the button for comparing. So if I click on that, it'll have my photo at the top, and then at the bottom, it'll have other photos that have been submitted. And you can scroll through at the bottom and compare other people's photos to your own. And you can even like zoom in and expand your own photo or expand the other photo to look at the details. And as you keep scrolling, it'll go to the next species it had suggested. So now I'm looking at the western dwarf mistletoe photos. And I can kind of see just from the photo, it kind of looks smaller. It looks different than the juniper mistletoe. And then I'll go back. Oops. And since I've decided it is juniper mistletoe, I'm going to hit that little check button next to juniper mistletoe, and it'll now put that in as the species. So I'll show you guys another one, or Laurel's going to show you an example too. Sometimes it will come up with some really weird ideas of what something could be, or it'll give you like 10 things. This one was actually pretty easy, but sometimes it'll give you a whole bunch of different options. So it's not always easy to figure out what it is if you don't know, but this automatic feature still really helps to try to get an idea. Other features when you're inputting a sighting is in the notes section, you can type whatever you want. So you could type like seen on a juniper tree, you could type something about the habitat it's in. If it's an animal, you can talk about the behavior or how many you saw. So you can put whatever you want in that notes section. The date and time were automatically input for me because that information was on that photo since I took it on my phone. But you can manually put that in too if you have photos that don't have the date and time saved in the file. And then the location was also automatically put in for me. But you can also put in location, which Laurel's going to show you more about that later. But basically, if I zoom out here, I think I was somewhere up by Placitas for this photo. So yeah, I was at like the northern edge of the Sandias. For some reason, it's calling it Albuquerque. Maybe that was like technically in Albuquerque. So it just kind of gives like a pin where your location was. And like I said, Laura will show more about how you can change that later, but you can type in basically like a search. You can, if it doesn't give you the location, like let's say your phone doesn't have location turned on, or you're using an SLR camera or another camera that doesn't have the location recorded, you can always put in the location yourself. So I'll just hit the check box to approve that. Laura will talk more about the location visibility later. The captive or cultivated button, we've kind of, Selena or Laura, feel free to jump in on this, but basically if you select captive or cultivated, I think people can't help you identify it. So you would do that if it was something like very obviously planted, maybe in a garden or something. But otherwise, you can probably just leave that box unchecked, as I think kind of what we decided. Any input on that?
Yeah, if it's obviously cultivated, someone will come along and mark it so, but hopefully they might identify it beforehand. And so by not marking it as captive or cultivated at the beginning, that's great to do that. So it's in the pool for people to identify. And then after it's identified, if you want to go back and click that, that's great too. But that's my trick, is to not click it and then wait until I get an identification when it's something I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thanks. And then the last thing you can input is you can add it to a project. So I've joined projects on iNaturalist. Like there's one, seasonal sightings along the Middle Rio Grande. So if you were along the Bosque, you could click that one. New Mexico nature mapping is one that I and my organization run, and that's for mammal, bird, plant or insect sightings anywhere in New Mexico. So you could check that. And then it'll ask you some questions sometimes. However, for City Nature Challenge, at the bottom, you can see collection and umbrella projects. So I've joined the last 3 City Nature Challenges. You don't have to check anything, and you actually can't. So your sightings will automatically be included in City Nature Challenge. You know, that'll add to our count as long as it's within one of the 3 counties and taken during the 4 days of the challenge. So you don't have to add it to the City Nature Challenge project. And then I'll just hit the check button. And then at the bot, to actually save this and upload it, this is very important, hit that bottom green check button. And then it will upload it. And I will say on my phone, it sometimes takes a while to upload. So just make sure you leave the app open and watch that little circle as it's filling in, and make sure it does upload correctly. And that's how to do that on an Android. So I'll pass it to you, Laurel, to show on an iPhone. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you, Fiona. And if you've got questions about how to do this on an Android phone, I encourage you to type it into the chat, and Fiona can answer, because we should turn it over to Laurel now to talk about how to deal with this if you have an iOS. So Laurel, turn it over to you.
Okay, here we go. If you do have an iPhone, this is what it'll look like when you first turn it on. And so it's very similar and simple. So you can see the observations I've made recently, or things that I've input recently, like the American woodcock at the top. So if you go to observe, and then you have the option of either camera or camera roll. And so I'm going to choose camera roll to input something that I observed last night at Candelaria, the Candelaria Nature Preserve. And so I'm going to include 2 of them just because I like the second one. That's my art photo. And then hit add. And they're very small. This is of Say's Phoebe. And so I'm going to click the what did you see and see if the AI agrees that it's a Say's Phoebe. Let's see. It's thinking about it. Says Phoebe, there we go, not Paraluxia. The top knot is not that prominent. But so you can see you've got a wide range of answers, and it's very much not a vermilion flycatcher, although they have a little bit of that top knot going on as well. But so I will choose what I know it to be, but you could, if you don't know and don't want to make a wild guess, you can just type in that same spot bird, and that will get it into the hands of or onto the screens of birders. You can see that you can type notes like Fiona mentioned. It was 6:30 last night that I took this picture. This is where it was. If you want to go look for Say's Phoebes, you can go there. And I'm going to leave that Geo Privacy to open because it is a public area. If you are making observations at your home and you don't want your home pinpointed for the rest of the world to see, you go to Geo Privacy and do obscured. If you do private, it won't go out into the community. It's just for you. And so that doesn't help with the City Nature Challenge or any scientists using the database. But obscured, we'll put it somewhere nearby, but not there. I'm gonna leave this one at open. And I'll show you quickly a way to modify your location on the website as well. Although you could just click veranda, and if that were my home, which it's not, I could go over and just mark it, put it in the middle of the field, which you actually can't go there, but put it in the vicinity and give it a different location. And so I'm going to cancel that because I want to leave it at that location. And there's the projects that Fiona mentioned, but I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then there is the upload option there. And at the bottom, you can see along with observe, you can go over and explore, that option for exploring on your phone in addition to the website. But I'm going to actually leave that there and go back to Zoom and stop my share and start my share on.
Hang on, Laurel, before you leave your app.
Sorry.
Carol asked a question about whether you can do sound on iOS.
And
I said,
leave my app and say, sadly, no. And I don't understand why. I'm hoping that is a feature. It's a relatively newer feature for the Google, and I hope Google phones, and I hope that it is a feature coming to iOS because that's kind of annoying. So I'm going to go ahead and share my computer screen and come over here.
Laurel, another part of the question was asking about whether you could compare photos like I was doing on an Apple. Are you able to do that?
You know what? I don't remember. Let me, after we go into questions, I'll research that and we can come back with an answer. So, because I wanted to show you some of the options with the website. I'm in the CNC ABQ account instead of my personal one. And so we'll look at some of the observations that we made. I actually made these observations when we were at the Nature Center, but the Nature Center wasn't open. We were doing virtual iNaturalist sessions there last year due to the pandemic, and we're actually going to do that again this year. So that's something to watch for. But let's look into how to what happens when you see your observations on the website. And so here we have a red-winged blackbird, which I suggested that idea, and someone else agreed. And actually, we need someone else to agree to get that up to research grade. You have to have 2/3 of the people who have, or at least 3 people, 2/3 of whom agree. But you can see the blue is where the observation was made, and these are all the different, or are all different places that red-winged blackbirds have been reported. And so you can zoom in, but you can also zoom out and see where they have been reported here in the area. Now, if I wanted to edit things, if I didn't actually take that picture at the Nature Center and I had done that incorrectly, I could search for a different spot like Tingley Beach here, which is another place we might find a red-winged blackbird in this area. I'll go over to the natural ponds behind the fishing ones, and you can see you can edit everything here, and you can change your geo privacy here. And so if you ever make a lot of observations at home or only one, you can change the geo privacy to obscured, and so it will just show up as being in that general area. And so all of this is editable. You can add more files. That's one thing I wanted to, more photos. One tip that I like to do is to take a picture of, I think Fiona, you said this, but to make an observation, even if it's not a great picture, with your phone, just do a snapshot, and then you can go into the website and upload your SLR and super zoom photos that way. And so but it captures the time and location, and then you can put your good pictures in. But I wanted to go through uploading just from scratch. So that's actually, I'll just cancel that. And so let me upload, go to upload and choose files. And so these are some pictures, some I've taken recently, some not so recently. I'm actually going to choose best porcupine track because I love this picture. You can choose a bunch of pictures, and you, if you upload more, you can drag them onto the same observation, or you can have a bunch of different observations. Let me actually upload another one. Where is my, okay, something is different here. It's not, oh, there's add, okay. All right, so I'm gonna upload another photo that's from a different observation. And actually I'm gonna do two from the different observations. And so these are pictures that I took of an American woodcock, which was really special to have here. You have to be a birder to really appreciate how special. But since those were from the same observation, I will pick up the one photo and drag it over to the other. And I like to put the best picture up front, but you can also, in the editing, you can reorder them if you want to put the nicest picture. And these are both bad, but it will load the metadata, so it knows that this picture was taken in January and that this one was taken in 2011. And it'll be interesting actually to see if it gets porcupine. But nope, interesting. Okay, so see, porcupine did not come up as an option. Oh, North American porcupine. And then location, this is a nice feature that I definitely wanted to show you. The with locations, you can search for a location. So this was taken at Rio Grande Nature Center State Park. And you can have, if you don't remember where in the state park you were, you can have a big circle of accuracy. If you knew you were somewhere in the garden area, you can put it right there, for instance. But you can also, if you know exactly where you were, you can make it very small and choose that very tiny area that you know exactly where it was. And so I don't actually know exactly, but it was in this general area. And so when you move it around after you search to a certain area, it changes the name. So I don't want this to be Candelaria Farm because it's next to Candelaria Farm, but it's not Candelaria Farm. And so I'm going to change it back to Rio Grande Nature Center State Park. And I could go to pinned locations. So that one's, oh, that's what I have here. I forgot. I have created pinned locations in my own account that are different ones. So in this, you can, with a pinned location, you can set the Geo Privacy so it's always obscured, or so you could have those locations set up, but you can also manually set up a pinned location so that it does obscure your observation. And I have one of those set up for our neighborhood. So let me update this observation, and I'm going to do that for, do a new one. I'm going to type in, whoops, let's see. Yeah, so I'm going to go to Corrales, oops, wrong pin location. Corrales, New Mexico, and come down here. And I actually don't remember where this was on a map. So I'm going to make Brant, yeah, I think you may have seen that bird. You might know exactly where it is. But you do that, and to create a pinned location, you go to pin, and then it will save all of this data for you. And then you'll be able to go here and grab it again in the future. So update that observation. And then this one, it obviously is not, well, actually, let's see if it can guess it. American woodcock, wow. Okay, so this is an example of a bad picture being very identifiable. So now, if you had, if these pictures were from the same location, but of different species, you could go and edit the locations, and you could click here and then make a huge, and this is just an example, pretend they were closer together. If they were both at the nature center, but you had specific spots and you wanted to just have them both at the nature center specifically, you could do a method like that. And that would change the location for as many of these as you have selected. And so if you, you can also, if whatever you have selected, if you had had the Geo Privacy set to exact to open, which is translated as location is public here, you could also change that. And so if you made a bunch of observations at your home, you could go in and change that all at once. But in our last couple of minutes, I want to go to identification. This is last year's project, but once it's up and running for our, oh no, it's not last year's project. Here, let me change it to last year's project. Once ours is up and running, it will look like this, and it will have the number of observations that have been made and the species and pictures of recent observations and the leaderboards for people who are, we have Brant Magic here today, number 2 in species and number 3 in observations overall. And I think SMNHC, is that all you, Friana? That
yeah, mostly.
Yeah.
I went a little crazy.
So excellent. And then this is a map, and this is really fun just to watch this get populated as people make observations over the weekend. It's very cool. But to identify, help with identification, you just click on observations, and then you can go through and look at these pictures, but you can also click on identify. And these are all the observations that have been made, and you can see tons and tons, all 5,000 pages of these. And if you want to look at only plants or only birds, you go to filters. And right now it's set, the filter is set to look only at City Nature Challenge 2020. You could say, I want to filter and look at only things at the Rio Grande Nature Center or any other location that has a set boundary that's been set up in the, but let's say I want to look at birds only. although City Nature Challenge has made me love other other taxa as well. So this is a observation I'm going to look at. It says kingbird. It was made in the Mountain View neighborhood. I'm going to zoom in on the picture. Let's see. And see if I can see, this is most likely a Western kingbird, but I can't, the details right there on the tail are blocked by the power line. And so I can't see if that is definitely, although it looks like it's a little lighter on the edges. Actually, I think I would call that this is most like a Western kingbird. And so you then scroll down. And I could, if I don't really know, I could just agree that it's a kingbird. But if I was very confident, which I'll decide not to be, I could suggest an ID by clicking on Add ID and then typing in Western kingbird. I might do that actually to see if somebody disagrees with me, just for fun. And so if someone came back and said, yes, I really agree, that is a Western kingbird, based on location, it likely is, but we also get Cassin's kingbirds, and they have been seen at Valle de Oro, which is right next to where this was observed. And actually, maybe this was, oh, it was at Valle de Oro. So actually, I will, I'll withdraw that one. Anyway, that's how you make those observations. And you can see that I'm having trouble scrolling. You can see there we have another example of a bluebird. Hard to see many details on that, so that's probably best left as a bluebird. Let's look at a black-chinned hummingbird. And my computer is not scrolling properly so that I can see the bottom part of the, shoot. But when you hit Add ID, then you can see what they've done and what other people have indicated as to their opinion on the ID. So I think we're at the end of our overview of all these different parts of City Nature Challenge and iNaturalist, and wanted to leave lots of time for questions. So let's, does anyone have any specific questions on ID right now?
And I'll just add on that you can ID things on the app also, but we suggest doing it on the website, mostly so you can have a larger screen to see things better, and it's just a little bit easier.
Yes, thank you, Fiona. So, and you can type your questions in the chat, or.
Oh, I did. There was a question I was responding to in the chat about adding, showing again how to add to a project. So I could show that on the app again, or I was wondering also, Laurel, if you want to just show on the website, just where that's at and how to add to a project.
Okay, yeah, let me pull that up. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and submit my observations. Okay, so I'm going to go to this. I'm sorry, repeat that question again.
Oh, so I was just, now you're stop screen sharing. I was going to have you show how to add to a project.
Yes, let me screen
how to
share.
add a setting to a project.
Let me get back there. Okay. So here we have projects. This is automatically in Bernalillo County Master Naturalist because I'm a member of this project, and I think several of you here are Master Naturalists, and so if you are not a member of this project, send me an email. but it could also be put into seasonal sightings along the middle Rio Grande. And with this is looking at phenology of species. And so for behavior, I'm going to say it was foraging. My keyboard is not happy with me. It is not a flower, so it doesn't have a flowering phenology. I don't know what it was eating, so I can't add that. The sexes look the same. I'm going to say it's an adult, and there was only one, and it's not a leaf. So I will add that to that project. And let me see.
Laurel, can I just add in about the idea of projects? And for the City Nature Challenge, it's a special kind of project. It's an umbrella project, which means that we've set it so that as long as you've made an identification in iNaturalist during those 4 days in the appropriate part of R4 or in our 3 counties, it will automatically be added to the City Nature Challenge. There are other projects that you have to join in order for your observations to get added. So, but in the case of City Nature Challenge, you don't have to do anything. As long as you're using iNaturalist during that time frame, then it will automatically be added. And actually, even after the City Nature Challenge has ended, those 4 days in the kind of ID phase, if you can still upload observations that were made during those 4 days. You just can't make any new observations and upload those. One thing that you might find is that some of your observations get added to projects, so that you haven't joined them, but perhaps invertebrates of the Southwest notices your picture of a butterfly and they'll add it. And so it's been sort of fun for me to see some of the observations I've made that have gotten added to some collection projects.
Let's see. Nathan, you just said that you tried adding an observation to a project and it also added it to City Nature Challenge ABQ 2020. How interesting. Was it made? Was the picture taken in 2020?
No, I just took it earlier today.
That's
it brings up 3 of them. It brings up 2021, 2020, and then the umbrella one.
Oh, that's to those. I think those are.
I think it just lists them, so it'll show them as like when you're going in to try to add it to a project, it'll bring those up as like kind of options, if that's what you mean, on the screen where you're choosing the projects.
Yeah,
so it doesn't mean it's adding it to it. It's just kind of showing you where you had joined those projects. Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as joining other projects, you can go in on the iNaturalist website, and I think you can just browse through nearby projects in your area. So this is, again, separate from City Nature Challenge. You can look through and see what types of projects there are, and you can join them on the project pages. There's always going to be a little join button. And then anytime you submit your own sightings, then it'll have a list of all the projects that you've joined or that you're part of, and you'll be able to select from those projects.
Right. Let me show that. On projects, here are projects. You can start a project. And these are some that are featured. This is the overall City Nature Challenge one. So that'd be fun to join and also visit and watch the observations roll in all around the world. I'm going to search for ABQ Backyard Refuge Program, which is one that we were just starting this week. And see if it finds it. All right. And because this is a special one, unfortunately, iNaturalist doesn't let you sort due to or add a tag when you're in making an observation on the app, but you can do it in when you're adding things on the website, or go back to the website and add it. And we are asking people to, when they make observations in their this is the Backyard Refuge Program asking, not the City Nature Challenge, asking people to go in and tag any picture that you take, any observation that you make in your backyard or your neighborhood as backyard. And that we're going to use that to look at and hopefully watch the number of different species grow around the city. And so if you want more information about that, you can contact me, but you could also go to this. I'll put this in the chat. Actually, I'm putting two in the chat, the City Nature Challenge website. So you can browse the cities and see if there are cities where you have friends and you can encourage them to participate somewhere else in the world. And then here's that ABQ Backyard Refuge Program project. And so you join that and you can help us document the backyard biodiversity all around the city.
Laurel, we did have a question in the chat about where do you tag it in your observation? Where do you put backyard?
Go back to, here is the American woodcock, and I'm going to go in and edit it. And there are notes, and then below notes are tags. And that's something they don't have on the app, released yet. Requesting it as a feature. And so, yeah, this was not in a backyard, but if it were, you would type backyard there. And then our team can go through and search for only observations that have been made in the Albuquerque area that have that tag backyard. And so we'll be doing that and watching that grow. I wanted to show you an example of drawing down the day. If we don't have any, do we have another question?
Well, I wanted to
Laurel,
jump in with one.
Yeah, we probably need to move on to the next part, but go ahead, Fiona.
So I saw there were a couple questions in the chat, and one was submitted to me about making sure the app is correct. So I can't, some people are saying like they're seeing different features on their own phones compared with what we were showing. So the way that I got the iNaturalist app is I use the Google Play Store, and literally it will be called iNaturalist. So if it has any other type of name to it, that's not the correct one. It'll have the little green bird logo on a white background. So I would suggest just making sure you have that one downloaded. And also someone was asking about updates. So it's possible if you have an old version of it and you have your phone set not to do updates, you might have to go in and manually update it or re-download it. Other than that, I can't say why it's showing up differently on different phones though.
So we're coming up on the end of our time together, and we have a few more slides that we would like to share with you all. And we're happy to stay on after 2:30 to answer any questions that continue to come up. I also want to let you know that I will email a copy of these slides to you, so you'll have a copy. And as soon as we get our recording done, we'll make sure to get that back out to you as well, if there's anything else that you'd like to share. So Laura, I want to make sure people see this piece about joining the project. And this is what it will look like, our project for 2021. And the reason to join is that it'll be a really good dashboard for you to see what's happening. But as we mentioned before, you don't have to join for your observation to count. I'll turn it back to Laurel and Fiona, who are going to talk us through these last few slides.
Okay, Fiona, you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, and Laurel just put that link in the chat, so you can click right on that. If you already have an iNaturalist account set up, you can just hit the join project button, and then you'll be in the City Nature Challenge 2021 for Albuquerque. So you can go to the next slide, Selena. So here's just your checklist, basically, of what you need to do to participate in City Nature Challenge 2021. So if you haven't yet, make sure you set up an iNaturalist account and or download the app. So you don't have to have the app, as we've discussed, but it's helpful. I didn't show, it's kind of like a hidden feature, but I use more than one iNaturalist account. And there is a way to log out of one and into another on the app, but it's under settings. So if anyone happens to have the same issue as me, That's a little like pro tip. But you'll want to be logged in anytime, obviously, you add something. You can join the iNaturalist City Nature Challenge ABQ project for 2021 that we just linked in the chat. A way to keep informed on what we're up to and have kind of reminders of the challenge. We post stuff like photos from past challenges. We'll post stuff from all our partners on our social media. So these are our social media pages. Basically just search City Nature Challenge ABQ on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or type in those names and you'll be able to find us and follow us on any of those three. I will say the Facebook is going to be the most informative as far as Facebook events and all of that for having reminders. But I do try to post a good amount on the other two as well. And then when it gets to City Nature Challenge, well, I should say before that, make sure you practice using iNaturalist, practice all the things we've talked about today. Make other observations before the challenge, I would suggest, so you're like an expert by then. And then on the dates of April 30th to May 3rd, so it's Friday through Monday, you can participate in the challenge itself by doing everything we just showed. So taking photos of everything you see, submitting those observations on iNaturalist, and making sure that they're somewhere in Bernalillo, Valencia, or Sandoval counties for them to count for City Nature Challenge ABQ. And then following that period from May 4th to May 9th is when it's called the identification period, where people can go in and really work on IDing all those sightings. So you can ID, there were some questions in the chat about when you can ID. So you can ID right from the start. If someone submits something at midnight on April 30th, you can ID it at 12:02. So you can ID anytime, but on those dates of the 4th through the 9th, those 6 days after the 4 days of the challenge, we're really going to be encouraging to go in and really look through all the submissions and do more identification. And we can go to the next slide. So if you want to go above and beyond and you want to do more than just participating on your own device, you can help us by spreading the word, getting your family involved, telling your friends, sharing it with groups that you're a part of. So I know a lot of you are from volunteer groups or master naturalists, or you're part of organizations. We're trying to encourage Scout troops, Girl Scout and Boy Scout troops to get involved, or maybe challenge other troops. Teachers and can get their classes involved. So if you know any teachers, or you are a teacher, you can set up maybe one account for your whole class, and then have either collect all the photos from your students, or have them logging into that account. If they're under 13, they won't be able to make their own account, but I saw a way on iNaturalist for parents to okay accounts for younger kids. So there's some options there. You can challenge others, so you can kind of see amongst your organization, or if you're if you're a scout troop leader, you can challenge another troop and see who can get the most observations or species or IDs. So that's a good way to get people motivated to do more. You can share our social media posts, or post on your own to share about the challenge. Like I mentioned earlier, you can try to go to different locations and then also target new spots. So if you go to our City Nature Challenge ABQ 2021 page, you can view a map of where, during the challenge. Obviously now it's going to be empty, but during the challenge, and you'll be able to see all the places people have submitted sightings within the counties. So if you really want to go above and beyond, look for areas of the map that are blank, that no one submitted anything, and try to go out to those spots and see if you can find anything. Would be kind of a cool way to be like an A+ student with us. And then definitely help ID. Like, everyone gets excited about submitting sightings, but it's really useful and important that we actually go back in and do those IDs. So even if you're not a taxa expert, if you don't really know what species something is, remember, you can always just put a bird, or if you can tell, what family of birds it's in, or what group of species, get it down to any level you can as far as ID, and that'll really be much appreciated if you can help us with that.
Yeah. And wanted to add 2 things to that. If you're not on social media, we're going to be posting events in the iNaturalist event page. And we are going to have some ID events. We have some experts in different taxa who are going to help us make observations during that period. But we don't have details for those yet. So that will, in addition to being publicized on social media, will also be at that page. And if you join the project, you can get updates automatically for that. And I just wanted to add, as far as the A+ student thing, if you want to see where general areas where observations have been made in iNaturalist since iNaturalist began in our area, and then look for gaps, I'm pasting a map that was created in 2019 with those gaps. So just pasting it in chat.
All right, any more
Thank you,
questions
Laurel.
at this point?
And I'm going to launch our little evaluation poll here at the end, because I know that some folks may have things they need to take care of starting right here at 2:30. So I'm going to launch the poll to find out how this training went for you today and what you're feeling about the City Nature Challenge. So I'm going to launch that and let you, I should let you know that this is completely anonymous, so we won't know who it is that says how you're feeling about your ability to participate in the City Nature Challenge. We're just interested, and I'll be teaching this class again next week. It's great to have feedback from you all about how it went. So let's do another few moments here, and I'll close the poll here pretty soon. But we want to thank you all for being with us today. Thanks. We appreciate your participation, and we really are looking forward to having you being part of our City Nature Challenge coming up at the end of April, but also continuing to be part of the iNaturalist community, because it's really a fantastic way both to individually contribute to what's going on with biodiversity and nature in our urban areas, but also feel connected to the wider world. Fiona and Laurel, anything else you want to add before we call an end to the official training?
I'm just excited we have another big group of people who want to participate. And I was looking at the poll, if you need a little more support and practice right now, or at least the support part, we could, I can stay on and answer more questions and so on.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone for attending too. Feel free to reach out to me if you do have any specific like technical questions or any kind of questions about anything we covered today. And we will be posting the recording too if you want to go back and watch any portions of our training today.
All right, I think that's the official end to our training. We are happy to hang out with anybody who's got questions or wants to ask a few things. But thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day.